We're talking about the Game Changers Challenge. So let's start off with this, okay? So when we're changing performance and changing leadership and we're advancing in today's world, gamification comes into play in a big way, because at the end of the day, we want to have a good time while we're learning. You know what happens is that many times we'll be at a conference such as this one, right? Where we are absorbing so much information, right? Our leadership conference, you've been to those, different types of training that you're in there for 2 days, you're drinking out of a fire hose, and then you go back to your day-to-day, and what happens? Nothing, right? Like where does your book go? Up on the shelf. So you got the certificate, you completed the training, but how much of it actually sticks? And so that's what fascinates me as a leadership development consultant, is how do we create personal and professional change and development? And so I'll give you a little bit of my background. I was born and raised here in Miami, Florida. Went to school down here, was involved in student government. I was student body president of my fraternity, very involved. Then I started my career off with Caterpillar. So I moved from Miami, Cuban guy from Miami. I went to Central Illinois, okay, 180. Didn't know anybody. I was 22 years old, but it was a blessing in disguise. So I started working there September 10th, 2001, so the day before 9/11. And so as you know, what happened after 9/11, all the businesses stopped. I was on the merry-go-round in terms of like musical chairs, getting some experience within CAT. And so I got stuck in an even smaller town because I started off in Peoria. So Peoria, Illinois, all of a sudden was the big city because I got moved to Decatur, Illinois. And fortunately, I was the only guy that spoke fluent Spanish at the factory where they made these big trucks, right? These CAT, big equipment. And so they said, hey, would you go to Spain for 2 weeks and interview customers on voice of the customer, like gather voice of the customer for the next generation product? And I said, hell yes, absolutely, I would go. And so I spent a couple of weeks there, and I told everybody that would listen, hey, listen, if something opens up in Europe, let me know, because I'll be here. And it did. And so I went overseas for about 9 years. I was in Geneva, Switzerland, covering Europe, Africa, and the Middle East for about 3 years. Went to Rome for 3 years, doing leadership development and operations. And then went to Panama City, Panama, and I covered about 19 countries in the Caribbean before making my way back to Miami. Then got my MBA. Actually, I was hired by FIU's College of Business as their executive director for some time on the development side, which is on the fundraising side. We all know that is a very different animal. And so from there, I went to lead a consulting company, and then I opened up my own firm about 5 years ago. So I'm very passionate about what I do. And a lot of it is around strategic planning, team building, leadership development. And we have a couple tools. And the one I want to talk to you about today is called the Game Changers Challenge. I think we're going to have a lot of fun with this. So all these companies over the last year and a half have taken over 300,000 actions in the app. Okay. And so it's a very sticky, very fun way to create culture change, behavior change, and get people to practice and apply what you're trying to get them to practice and apply. Right? So that we have a successful organization. So first things first, let's start off with a daily inspiration. All right. So my goal is not to be better than anyone else, but to be better than I used to be. Next thing I want you to do is I want to share a win. Okay. So I want you to kind of partner up with the person next to you. I want you to share a win that you've had over the last 24 hours, the last week, whatever that is. And it could be a small win. It could be a big win. It could be like, hey, I met somebody new. I closed a new deal. I learned something new. I went to my daughter's softball game and she hit a home run. Whatever that is, I want you to share a win. So take a moment, think about this, okay? Take a moment and share a win. So that is amazing, right? We don't do that often enough because we're negatively biased, right? That's why the news is always negative, because it catches our attention and then we just dwell on that, right? And doesn't that happen at work also, right? You can have 10 things go great today at work, but you have that one problem that lands on your desk and it's a stinking turd of a problem. And that's all you're going to focus on. And then at night, you're dwelling about it. The next day, it ruins your day, right? You show up differently. That's because we tend to do that. So it's important to be very conscious and intentional about sharing wins. Like pop the little bottle of champagne in your head and, spray it and recognize that. So you all get 10 points. All right. Next thing. Acknowledge someone or something that you are grateful for. So what you just experienced is what people experience in the Game Changers Challenge on a daily basis. All right. And so there is the happiness advantage And basically what he states is that we chase success because we think that once we get the raise, that we'll be happier. And once we get we make more money, we get that position, we get that title, that we'll be happy. The problem is every time you reach a success, the goalpost changes. It moves, right? And so we spend very little time in that happiness zone, because as soon as we get there, it's like, bam, oh, now I got to get the next grade. And, we do it with our students too, right? Oh, you get an A, well, now you got to get more A's because you got to get into the AP classes, and then you got to get into the college, and then you got to go do this and that. And so the goalpost keeps changing. So what he said, and what he found out, is that you got to flip it over. You got to be happy, which then gives you the advantage to succeed. And so your brain at positive is 31% more productive than at negative, neutral, or stressed. Isn't that wild? But we've all experienced it, right? We've all had a time where we feel so under pressure by our bosses, by our deadlines, and what happens? When we feel stressed, right? You get nothing done, and what else happens? We freeze, right? We can't think. That's why people, sometimes when they get up, they have a fear of speaking, then they blank out, right? And that's all because all the prefrontal cortex, that's where your executive functions are. All the blood rushes to the amygdala in the back, which is the fight or flight, and you have no processing power, and you're just like, and you have nothing to say. And so as leaders, we're always trying to create a very positive, constructive culture, right? Where people feel happy, they look forward to coming to work. You spend most of your life at work, if you think about it, right? So we might as well make it a place where people have a great time. And that leads to engagement. When people are engaged, so your productivity goes up, your retention rates go up, and you're always continuously improving. At the end of the day, people want to feel seen, valued, and heard, right? They want to feel like they contribute to the greater purpose. And when they're able to say things and contribute their ideas, then all of a sudden you have tremendous continuous improvement, right? We're on the cutting edge. Charter schools they're doing amazing things because you're running schools almost like a business. So they're running so much more efficiently and effectively and on the cutting edge and all that stuff, right? And so we need our people to be generating those types of ideas. So culture is really, really important. This is another fantastic stat. 25% of our job success is predicted by IQ. 75% is predicted by your optimism levels, your social connection, and your ability to see stress as a challenge and not as a threat. So you can have, Harvard graduate and everything else, but you put them in a situation where there's no social support, there's no optimism, you're not going to get, you're not going to get out of your people what you want to get out of your them. And so this is why it's so incredible that when we put these things together, these challenges, they're all built with positive psychology already inside of them. They're built with adult learning theory and with gamification in mind. That's why it makes it so sticky and so effective. And by the way, it's completely customizable and it takes about 5 minutes a day. That's not bad, right? So over a 30-day period. As adults, we like to take bite-sized chunks. Give me one problem, give me one thing to focus on, and let me go apply it, right? Because if we don't apply it, it's just theory, and if we don't practice it, it's never going to come into fruition. And so through positive psychology, we're enhancing relationships. We're building connective tissue amongst groups of people that perhaps aren't in the same location anymore, right? After COVID, everyone's, hybrid and spill it out. And, some people are working here, but there's schools in Chicago. And so how do you create that connective culture, the connective tissue within your culture? This is the way to do it, because what happens in this challenge is that it's very scalable, right? So you can have 50 people, you can have 1,500 people. But nobody likes to be at a party with 1,500 people. You never get to know anybody, right? There's a practical limit to it. But in terms of, it has positive psychology, adult learning theory, so experiential learning, self-directed, right? So you kind of do it on your own. And it's action-based and micro-learning. Again, here's a little tip, go and apply it. Here's a tip, go and apply it. But over 30 days, it starts adding up, right? And then what are we doing when we're applying? We're creating habits, right? We're changing the ship. Our subconscious it's very hard to change because we're pre-programmed, right, with our habits. So we want to start making that shift. Okay, so what does this look like when we actually come in and work with you on this? And I'll show you a demo of what it looks like here soon. So I'll come to you and you'll say, okay, what are your three main issues, right, that you're having with your staff, with your team? And it might be building trust, building relationships, and communication. Okay, perfect. So we'll go back and we'll build out a rubric that's completely customized, bespoke to you and your needs, so that it's completely designed for you. It's designed even with your logos, colors, everything. So it looks like it's your app, essentially. So then we have a kickoff, and that was with about 160 mental health professionals, mental health coordinators from Miami-Dade County Public Schools. All right, and so they've run it 3 times every summer. They use it to recharge their batteries, and it's called the Super Summer Challenge. And so it's all about, mental health, well-being. What are you eating? What are you working out? All that stuff. So we have a kickoff meeting that could be, it could be 30 minutes. It could be a half day training, right? Where we use it as a training session, and then we kick off with the 30-day challenge. And then at the end, we have a recognition ceremony. So that was with Miami-Dade College, about 100 leaders from the Kendall campus, Miami-Dade College. And we recognize all the great things that have been done over the last 30 days. Man, we do so much, but we don't stop to say, man, good job today. If we're waiting for our bosses to pat us on the back, we might be waiting a long time, right? We need to kind of recognize that. And so after the 30 days, what's cool is that every participant can get a report out with their individual reports. So let's say you had 3 wins a day, in 30 days, you have 90 wins. How about that for your evaluation? You'll be like, yeah, there you go. Submit it. No, but it builds self-confidence, it builds self-esteem, right? And it builds engagement. All right, so this is what it looks like. So we start off, and there's a daily inspiration. And so that changes daily over 30 days. What you'll see here, for example, is at the bottom, that one's for Miami-Dade County Public Schools. So you see their logo. And a lot of times what we'll do is we'll incorporate pictures from your picture slides, right? Like everyone has a set of pictures from their school, so we can customize this to have actual pictures so the participants can see themselves in the app. All of a sudden they're famous, all that good stuff. So the daily inspiration changes, and that really impacts, your mindset for the day. Next thing down is a daily affirmation. And here, again, this could be a value statement. It could be a rallying cry, whatever it is that you want it to be for the organization. The idea is that they read it daily, and it sets up their mind for the day, right? Next area down there is the wall of wins. And this is like the Facebook kind of Instagram serotonin area, right? This is where there's like the social feed where we can post our wins. Just like we did today, this morning, you can post your wins and people will see it there, and they can give you high fives, they can comment, they can post pictures, right? And we're gonna do this today after the session, by the way. So next thing down is called the Coach's Corner. This comes out Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and it's designed to be, it could be like a short video, 3 minutes, here's the lesson, go and apply it. Or it could be just, a short article, getting you to think about something, right? And apply it. Next up is the personal journal. Now I love this because here, the organization, I ask them to put the actions and behaviors that are very hard to track, but that are critical for the organization. So, resolve the conflict, right? Recognize or acknowledge a team member. And what happens there is that, let's say they try to just submit it, they can't just submit it, they have to put in what they did, okay? So next thing down is a weekly video inspiration, and that comes out once a week, like a TED Talk. And then finally, you have an appreciation station, which is where we just shared the gratitude, right, at the beginning. And that gives you, who doesn't like to, like when you guys shared the gratitude about each other, when you received it, it felt amazing, right? Those who you shared a gratitude for, it felt amazing, but it also feels great for the person giving it, right? And then finally, you have a leaderboard, because I said it's all gamified, right? So you'll see then who's stacking up on the leaderboard, and then for every 100 points, you're gonna get a raffle ticket. So at the recognition ceremony at the end, we have a raffle to see, okay, who wins some prizes, right? Usually gift cards and things like that. You can get creative. But let me tell you, people are extremely competitive. Is there any competitive people here? Don't hear? You're already downloading the app. So let me tell you, the friendly competition, it gets fun. We used this at the Dade Association of School Administrators Conference. It was 350 assistant principals, principals, and administrators from MDCPS, from Miami-Dade County Public Schools. And in 4 days or 4.5 days, they took 78,000 actions in the app because we created teams that were competing against each other. So the regions were competing against each other. So the North against the South, against the Central, and against the administrators. And man, these guys played all out. I was expecting like 5,000 actions. They just went nuts because they're competitive and they loved it. They had so much fun, right? Because you kind of, so it's a great way to celebrate wins, to build culture, but in a fun way. I want to put this up here because this is pretty fun. We behave and act not according to the truth, but the truth as we believe it to be, right? So like I said, we are pre-programmed with certain preconceived notions, certain ways of looking at things. You know, I'm going to show up and, do the same thing every day and so forth, right? And so I'm going to put something up here. And there's the reason why I'm telling you this is because it's all about application, right? We got to practice certain things. So I'd like you to read this statement. Let's count the number of letter F. F as in Frank. There are 7 Fs. All right. and we're taught to speak phonetically, right? We learn to speak phonetically. F and I kind of pre-programmed you. I cheated. I said F as in Frank. I didn't say F as in of, because of sounds like a V. So what happens is that we have a blind spot and we just skim right over it, right? So it's called a scotoma. A scotoma. So have you ever lost your keys and then your wife is like, they're right there in front of you? But you told yourself you lost your keys. So you're going to create a blind spot to the keys. It's called a RAS. The RAS is called the reticular activating system. And essentially it's like a net-like group of cells that lets in 2 things, what's of importance and what's of threat. Okay. Everything else, if it's not important and if it's not a threat, it's not getting in. Okay. And so like, for example, if you have kids, if you had a baby at home and you're sleeping at night, it's a newborn, and it could be pouring rain, it could be lightning, it could be thunder, it could be a train going by, but you don't wake up. But as soon as you hear the whimper of that baby, it's like, boom, you're up, right? So it's not the importance of the volume around you, it's the importance of the sound to you, right? And so we let in what's of importance to us. Now, when as an organization, does anybody, you all have organizational values, right? The reason I'm telling you is because when we don't live our values, when we don't live the vision, when we're not constantly reinforcing it, it kind of goes by the wayside, right? We have more important things to think about and so forth. But it's important because that's how we get our cutting edge, right? That's how we live our values in what we do. And so application is really important, right? So we have some organizations that, let's say they want to push their values. So they'll do a 30-day challenge around their values. And it's all about, hey, let's show up and let's talk about examples of how we're living up to our values, right? And then you can change it for something else. It could be gratitude. And so the beauty about these challenges is that they can be about anything. You can make them about Pokemon if you want to. It doesn't matter. So they're completely customized, but it's a very effective way to scale and impact large groups of individuals. So as leaders, we set the tone, right? And we set the standard. So we are constantly being watched by our people, right? So we got to set the tone and lead by example. Now, we know that standards, there's all tons of standards that we got to apply by, right? We got to apply by. But there's another definition to the word standard. So I don't know if you guys know of this. So back in the early days, when they were going to war, that flag was called the standard, okay? And so the generals and the main leaders had that flag by them because obviously they had no cell phones, right? They had no radio. And when they're all the way down on the hill, they need to see what's happening, like give us a sign. So that standard, called raise the standard, right? Because if the standard falls, what happens? Everyone thinks, oh my God, our general just got killed. It's like, it hit home. What's going to happen now? And chaos ensues, right? And so the person holding that was called the standard bearer. That's kind of where it comes from, right? And so if that person falls, somebody else has to pick up the standard, right? And put down their weapon. As leaders, we are carrying the standard, right? We're setting the example, we're setting the tone, and it's time to raise the standard, right? That's what I'm talking about, is our troops look for us for direction, right? For implementing, for keeping the organization going. Without it, chaos ensues, lack of direction, vision, engagement suffers, right? So we constantly have to be putting it out there and showing up for our people in a big way. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you found some value in this, and I'll be around the whole time. So I would love to chat with you guys. Thank you.